serial number. The electoral system in Ghana is so transparent that we agree on the rules before we go into the game. There is nowhere where the Electoral Commission trains our agents about how to identify serial numbers. And indeed, if serial numbers were going to be used as part of the identification process, then the polling agents should know in advance that Presby Primary B, Kato, has this serial number, so that the agent will be able to check the election official about the document and the number being used there to satisfy themselves that the election official is not using another document with the sole purpose of disenfranchising the people in that area. That is how come the polling agents verify the serial number range of the ballot papers before the voting begins. No polling agent in this country, as far as I'm aware, has been trained about the use of serial numbers anywhere. And the Electoral Commission has never, at any meeting, indicated that serial numbers will form part of the security features of the elections at all.
Now, order. You're also aware that reference has been made to pink sheets on which there is no signature of the presiding officer at the polling station.
Yes, my lord, I'm aware of that allegation.
What is your response to that?
My lord, it is true that we are all trained by the second respondent that at the close of poll and at the, after sorting and tallying votes to the candidates, you have all the party agents, including the presiding officers, who must sign. Then there is a declaration. Then after the declaration, each party agent is given a copy of the pink sheet, and then the presiding officer has a duty of conveying the results at the polling station to the collation center. So, my lord, I'm aware that there's a requirement that the presiding officer must sign. My lord, after we received the petition, we studied the petition, but we realized that in a lot of polling stations where this lack of signature was being alleged, we found out that the agents actually wrote their names. In other polling stations, they actually signed. But yes, there are other polling stations where the agents did not, where the presiding officers did not sign. But my lord, in all these places, the polling agents actually certified that work of the presiding officer. And I cannot contemplate a situation where you are engaged in doing a duty. After that duty, you present it to witnesses who certify that you have done well. And then you refuse to stand by your own work. And my lord, these signatures must be obtained before the declaration. And in all the polling stations that are in contention, declaration actually took place. And the presiding officers also continued with their duties of transmitting the results so declared to the collation center. And my checks have revealed that collation has taken place unchallenged in all these cases. So, my lord, I do not think that the signature, and in fact, on the form, you also see that whenever an agent is dissatisfied with any aspect of the work, the law allows the agent to protest. I don't see any column on the pink sheet where if a presiding officer is dissatisfied with his own work, he has to, lodge a complaint against himself. And my Lord, and my Lord, if our system were to allow the giving or withholding of signatures to determine the validity of votes in particular towns and villages in this country, then the presiding officer will be the person who will decide whether all the votes in the village should count or should not count. And I do not think that that is the intention of our electoral system.
Now, you're also aware that the petitioners allege that there were certain, in their words, unknown polling stations. Are you aware of that allegation?
Yes, my Lord, I'm aware of that.
What do you have to say about that allegation?
My Lord, before the elections, as I've indicated earlier, a list of 26,002 polling stations were printed and given to us, or parties, participating parties, even before the printing of the ballot papers. It is with this list that we tracked the printing of the ballot papers. Now, and after the voting, when we received this petition, we checked from the records, and we realized that all those 22 polling stations actually existed, and voting took place in 2012 in all those polling stations with the representatives of the petitioners as well as the representative of the respondents. My Lord, what we discovered was that in some cases, the names of the polling stations were wrongly spelled in the petition. In other cases, the code numbers of the polling stations were also, not exactly the same. But as I have explained the coding, if you are very conversant with the coding, you are always able to trace the physical location of all these polling stations. So we have identified the so-called, missing polling stations, and we have attached the list to our petition. And my Lord, we have since confirmed that voting took place in all these polling stations, and the agents of the petitioners were present, and they signed and certified the results declared, and there is no indication anywhere that anybody has challenged any of the results in those polling stations.
Now, Mr. Asiru Nketia, you said you had exhibited those polling stations which were claimed to be unknown. You actually said to your petition. What did you read? You have not filed a petition in this case. So
no. Yes, my Lord. My Lord, if a village Pawan Tapa is testifying in court, you can always expect him to make mistakes about terms in the court.
Now, in fact,
it's actually my affidavit.
You're referring to your affidavit?
Yes, my Lord.
In fact, are you referring to the exhibit marked as JN5 in your attached to your affidavit?
Yes, my Lord.
Now, in respect of these various allegations, that the petitioners have brought before this court, you are aware that the petitioners have brought certain pink sheets, and they have alleged that it is in respect of 11,000, in their petition, they alleged it was in respect of 11,916 polling stations. Now, you have also said that there were 26,002 polling stations in the country. Now, let me, can I have ID 1? I've delivered it. I'll come back. Now, have a look at this document, which was identified during the cross-examination of the second petitioner.
Yes, my lord.
Now, what is the nature of that document that you have identified as ID 1?
My lord, it is the pink sheet or polling station results relating to MA Primary School, Asokwa, with the polling station code F191201.
Now, you indicated that from the polling station code, you could identify where a polling station is. From the code of that polling station, are you able to tell what region or constituency it was?
Yes, my lord. It's evident from my narration that F is Ashanti region.
Okay. Now, that sheet, does it have relevant information in respect of, is there any information on that sheet in respect of the December elections?
My Lord, we object to this question. This is a question that goes to the content of the document that is not in evidence.
My lords, I am clearly laying the foundation to tender the document, and the question that I asked was whether the sheet on its face has any information relevant to the election. That is a necessary basis on which this document can be tendered, and therefore, my lords, it is important for the witness to be able to testify that that sheet relates to the December elections. If that is the basis on which it can be tendered or not tendered. So, my lords, this is clearly a relevant basis for proceeding with the tendering of what has already been identified.
My Lord, the witness has identified the document, so we all know what the document is. It is not necessary to ask for the contents of that document.
My Lord, I did not ask.
When an objection is raised and a reply is made to the objection, you can seek the leave of the court to reply to that. But we don't want to have a situation where an objection is raised, the other lawyer on the other side will counter and another will counter. In fact, if you look at the first objection that was raised, there were 5 submissions from both ends, and I think that it should be regulated. It is not in conformity with the laid-down procedure.
Very well, very well. The point is well taken. I think indeed your lordship is right. We should avoid going back and forth at the bar. I completely understand that. So,
We are most grateful.
As the court please. Now, that exhibit that has been identified, which is still in your hand, my lords, we would like to tender this exhibit. Order.
My lords, we object to the tendering of the document. The attempt to tender this document is in contravention of the directions of this court given on 2nd April, which directed the parties to attach to an affidavit all documents they will be relying on. This is a document that the first and third respondent clearly are relying on as part of their case, and so should properly have been attached to the affidavit. If your lordship has regard to the affidavit, they have attached documents that they are relying on. This document is not one of them. Allowing this document will mean that the directions of your lordship no longer holds. The petitioners complied with your lordship's order. Indeed, as a result of the order of your lordship, the petitioners went through quite some difficulty compiling the pink sheets. My lords, in attaching the documents that the petitioners will be relying on to the petitioner's affidavit, sufficient notice was afforded the respondents, who then reacted to it in their affidavits. There was no mention of this document in the affidavit of the first and third respondents. It is not part of their case. We have closed our case, and we are now being confronted with fresh documents. In the circumstances, we pray that the tender of this document should be disallowed.
My lords, yesterday in this court, the petitioners tendered a list of 704 polling stations as an exhibit in these proceedings. That list was not part of any affidavit that has been sworn before you. And your lordships allow that list clearly because of its relevance. So with the greatest respect, in the same manner as a relevant document was submitted by the petitioners, we are submitting that it was submitted by the petitioners after the stage of the affidavit being sworn. We are submitting that this document is a relevant document identified as a statement of poll and declaration of results at an identified polling station. My lords, the relevance of this document cannot be contested because on its face, the identified document was identified during the cross-examination. On its face, the identified document is a statement of poll in respect of a particular polling station in this country. My lords, it is part of our case that the issues in contention relate to 26,002 polling stations, because it is in respect of 26,002 polling stations that a declaration of results is made. We have also, my lords, pleaded the selective manner in which pink sheets have been provided by the petitioners in this case. And in the affidavit, that has been filed, there is an indication that the petition is brought in bad faith. In paragraph 27 of the amended answer, we have pleaded that that petition, in bringing the petition before the Honorable Court, petitioners are acting in bad faith. And in paragraph 17, of the affidavit, we again have the statement, this petition is an act of bad faith and a brazen attempt by the petitioners to find some reason to question the validity of the December 7 and 8 presidential elections after the loss. The exhibit that we are seeking to tender is a relevant part of our case as pleaded and as indicated in the affidavit.
My Lord, I would like, if your lordships would permit, to make an observation since a reference was made to the decision of the court made on the 2nd of April. But I'll follow what your lordships say as to whether it's appropriate to make this observation now, because as regards the tendering of documents, it will also affect the second respondent, my lord. But I can wait and make my submission later.
We have raised an objection, and if counsel can wait, after the objection is ruled on, you can give your observations to the court. Respectful, with leave of the court, I'd like to respond to certain issues raised by my learned friend. First, about the 704.
My lords, I think I understood that certain observations had been made in respect of back and forth, and I don't know whether leave is being sought or not.
Yes, he is seeking leave. Yes. He started with the leave of the court.
Yes. My lord, this list of 704 polling stations are part of the 11,842 polling stations to which pink sheets were attached to our affidavit. So there are matters that were already in evidence. They were also contained in the further and better particulars. So there is full knowledge of that list by the respondents. My lord, we are not talking about the relevancy of the documents here. It's not about relevancy. We are saying that there's been directions from this court as to the conduct of this petition. And we have abided by it, and we have closed our case following those directions. Now, the first and third respondents, by bringing this document, are setting up an entirely new case behind our backs. Now, the paragraphs referred to in their affidavit makes no reference to this document. And they further allege that they are trying to establish bad faith. Again, no particulars of bad faith were given in their affidavit for the petitioners to react to it. No such particulars were given.
May I, with your leave, just draw attention to what your order said and how we understood your order. Respectfully, my lords, that order made it clear that we could tender the document that was identified in cross-examination of the second petitioner. That order was in very clear terms. And that is why I limited myself just to establishing the relevance of the document in terms of your order. It was because of that that we did not proceed to tendering it through the second petitioner during cross-examination, but we were allowed to question him in relation to that, the ID1. And that order has not been set aside. It is also the basis on which not only their exhibit with 704, but also their new PowerPoint presentation, their list of deleted polling stations, all that has been allowed to be tendered.
The objection is sustained.
We're most grateful.
As the court pleases. Now, Mr. Asiedu Nketia, you
I will have to break at this stage. And for the usual 1 hour.
My Lord, I believe that the document has to be marked as reject. The document that was sought to be tendered should be marked as reject.
Yes, I think that must be done.
I'm most grateful.
Yes.
Court is taking a short break. All rise. Lunch break.
Now, Mr. Asiedu Nketia, have a look at this exhibit MBE 268, which is an exhibit of the petitioners. MBE 268. MBE 268. What is here? Now, have a look at this exhibit. What that exhibit is a pink sheet in respect of which polling station?
My Lord, this is the polling station report for Kofi Jan, DA Primary, code A152103. So the A indicates that it's in Western region.
Okay.
The code A152103.
Now, I'd like you to relate the column A2. Do you see the column A2 on that?
A2, yes, my Lord.
Now, how does that column relate to the evidence that you have given this morning?
My Lord, the column A2 gives the serial number ranges of the ballot papers used at the polling station.
Now, you heard the second petitioner claim that what is on this pink sheet is the primary record of the information here. What do you have to say in respect of that?
My Lord, I disagree with the petitioner because the ballot papers are issued to the presiding officer against a receipt which he signs before he carries these things to the polling station. So they are issued from the distribution center, and he receives them and signs a document. So when he arrives at the polling station, he then copies the serial number ranges from the receipt onto this. So I would consider that receipt as the primary document for these issues. And in the same way, the number of people who are entitled to vote at the polling station, number of people who are on the register, because the polling agents each holds a copy of the voters' register. So they know the number of people who are on the voters' register. So you merely pick that number and put it here. So in that sense too, the voters' register is the primary document and not the pink sheets of these pieces of information, my Lord.
Now, just staying on this pink sheet for the polling station that you have before you, you see some numbers in C1 and C3. Can you first tell us what C1 is and what C3 is?
Yes, my Lord. C1 reads as follows. What is the number of ballots issued to voters on the polling station register? And the figure there is 241. And then C3, what is the number of ballots issued to voters verified by the use of Form 1C, into brackets, but not by the use of BVD? And again, you have 241.
Now, the petitioners have brought this exhibit as an example of there being voting without biometric verification. That is the reason they have brought this exhibit. What do you have to say to that?
My Lord, I disagree with the petitioners because if you look at this scenario, it can only be a clerical error because it tells you that everybody who voted without biometric verification. And my Lord, it has not happened in any polling station apart from the certain selected polling stations that were tendered in. In this particular case, my Lord, there are one important mechanism that we must always not forget about is the complaint procedure, in which all the agents are very well trained to complain about anything that happens at the polling station which is not regular. My Lord, when you look at this pink sheets, all the polling agents of the various political parties, I mean, NDC has signed, Mumu Nisalia again for NDC has signed, Abu Bakar Simon for MPP has signed, Kuma Paul for MPP again has signed. And there is no indication about any complaint raised by any of these polling agents at that polling station. So, my Lord, it tells you that this can only be a clerical error. But let me also add one thing. Throughout the testimony of Dr. Bawumia, I heard he kept saying that this ballot accounting column is completed before the boxes are opened. Theoretically, yes. But, my Lord, it doesn't happen like that in practice. Anybody who knows about what happens at the polling station will agree with you, with me that that is not what happened. My Lord, what happens is that at the close of poll...
The witness addressing the court. I thought he was asked a simple question. And then he's gone on this lecture.
My Lord, the witness is answering my question.
My Lord, in the polling station scenario, once it is getting to 5 p.m., then everybody in the village begins going towards the polling station. And then, so normally you see that you have only a few minutes daylight to be able to do the counting in the open for those interested persons in the village to witness. So there is so much pressure brought to bear on the presiding officers. That is where you hear, Choboi, we want to know what is in the box. So what happens in practice is that the presiding officers open the box, do the sorting with the polling agents, and then they do the tallying of valid votes against the candidates before results are released, and then some of the presiding officers will now stay and do the ballot accounting. So it does not follow in theory like you see it on the paper. Anybody who is conversant with what happens at the polling station will testify to the fact that when it is 5 p.m., people want to see what is in the box, and counting, sorting normally would happen even before these ballot accounting sessions are completed. And my Lord, that explains to you, that explains why when you take some of the pink sheets, you see that the ballot accounting column is blank, and yet there is results declared and certified.
Now, order. Mr. Siedu Nketia, you mentioned that there were signatures of people from different political parties. Now, those signatures, what are they in relation to, as you can see on the pink sheet?
My Lord, the signatures are in relation to the declaration of resource. So the sign.
Can you just read the declaration that is on that pink sheet? Just when you turn to just before the
My Lord,
signatures.
it reads as follows. We, the undersigned, do hereby declare that the results shown above are a true and accurate account of the ballots in this polling station.
And on that exhibit, you're saying that those polling agents from the NPP also signed?
Yes, my Lord.
Very well. Now, let me just... Now, have a look at this MBE 270, which is also an exhibit provided by the petitioners in this case. Now, which polling station is that in respect of?
My Lord, is TB, temporary boot, SDA Primary School. I can't read the name very well, but it's something Newtown. Akida Newtown.
Very well. Very well. There's an exhibit number. So is there a polling station?
The exhibit number is MBE 270.
Yes, and have a look at the polling. You see, look at the polling station code again and explain that in reference to the evidence that you have given.
Yeah. Polling station code is A043503. And the A is an indication that this is from Western Region. 043503.
Now, have a look also at what is in the column A2 again and relate that to the evidence that you provided to this court earlier.
A2, what is the range of serial numbers of the ballot papers issued to the polling station? And again, the serial numbers have all been indicated.
Now, if you look at the top, what number is at the top right-hand corner?
My Lord, what
of the form?
is the number of ballots issued to the polling station? And it's 600.
Okay. Now, going further above that on the sheet itself, what is that number at the topmost right-hand corner?
I can see some number 0016293. I don't know what it stands for.
Okay. Okay. Now, in respect of the information contained in C1 and C3, can you read that and relate it to the evidence that you have provided to this court?
Again, my Lord, the number of ballots issued to voters on the polling station register and is indicated as 424. Then the number of ballots issued to voters verified by the use of Form 1C, but not by the use of BVD, again 424, giving an indication that everybody who voted at this station voted without verification. And my Lord, I am saying that this could only happen out of clerical error and does not represent what happened at the polling station. Otherwise, there would be a complaint by the polling agents. But again, all the polling agents have certified these results. And so there is no controversy about the actual number of votes tallied for each candidate.
Now, in respect of this biometric verification issue, you have referred to some discussions at the IPAC in connection with that. Can you explain to this court what the issue that came up in those discussions? What was the issue?
Thank you very much. My Lord, after we had done a pilot of the verification system,
can you explain what you mean by a pilot of the verification system?
My Lord, the biometric registration and verification are all new technologies that the second respondent implemented in these 2012 elections. So there was the need for them to be tested and for the parties to have the opportunity to review the lessons from the testing. And so there was a pilot voting exercise. And a subsequent meeting was held to discuss the outcomes and see how they will relate to activities on the actual voting day. So there were discussions, but we all came to a conclusion that no verification, no vote. And that is when everybody who is entitled to vote must first be verified before they can cast their vote.
Now, what, in those discussions, what was the position taken by the New Patriotic Party? Do you recall any particular position they took?
My Lord, some of the parties including NDC, took the position that since this is a new system, there must be an alternative method of verification in case of a machine breakdown or machine malfunction. MPP, took a position that everybody must be verified by thumb printing. So if there is a machine malfunction, it should lead to a replacement. And if replacement fails, it should lead to postponement of elections. And eventually, after all the discussions, we all agreed to go by that.
Now, have a look also at the portion of the exhibit that is the D portion. Have a look at that and relate it to the evidence that you've provided in respect of what happens when voting is completed. The D portion.
D portion,
which
there are
reads,
series of questions that relate to ballots that have been rejected.
how is that identified in any particular polling station? Do you know?
My Lord, at the close of poll, agents have been trained in how to identify valid votes and votes that ought to be rejected. So, my Lord, when the box is opened, the first important thing that is done is sorting of the ballot papers. And this sorting would have the aim of looking for ballot papers that should not form part of the valid votes. For instance, we train agents to identify a ballot which does not have any mark at all of the polling station. That ballot is set aside as rejected. If there is a ballot which is marked in such a way that you cannot know the choice of the voter, maybe thumb printing in more than one slots, then that one will also be rejected. If there is a ballot which is marked in such a way that the voter can be identified even after the voting, then that one is also rejected. And so this column is where all these rejected ballots are entered.
Now, if you look in the C column also, the fourth question, what is the total number of spoiled ballots? How is that determined and by whom?
My Lord, before the ballots are handed over to the voter, the ballot paper is handed over to the voter, it is torn from the ballot booklet, one at a time, turned face down and stamped and signed by the presiding officer before it's handed over to the voter. It may happen that in the course of tearing, the ballot paper may be destroyed. Then it is classified as rejected. It may also happen